you're up for it, we can just get started.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm ready.
Great, brilliant. Let us start super simply then. Can you just give me your name and just a little bit about what you do or enjoy? Anything that you feel like is like worth saying a line about?
Yeah. I'm Sam. I have just started a new job, like my first job. I work for a charity called Give a Book. I enjoy going to the gym. I like reading. I used to play a lot of sport when I was younger, and I play musical instruments and stuff. That's mostly what I do. That's me.
This is a complete side note. What instruments do you play?
I play the guitar, drums, and piano.
What? That's amazing.
I did have a keyboard in my room, but that was moved out in the first phase of moving.
Alright. You've already got the other place.
I'm
obviously.
moving home for a bit.
I see.
While we're sorting out where we're going to live next.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sorry, this
Yeah.
isn't going to be.
No, that's
interesting.
okay.
I'm just curious. Sorry.
That's fine.
Cool. All right. To get us on track. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about when you first started playing football? What got you into it? Who got you into it? And what that was like?
I was really young. I think I was maybe like 5. Like when I started primary school, all my friends played football. My primary school had a team that played on Saturdays. My dad was big into football when he was a child, so he sort of took me. And eventually he coached a bit because it was obviously like very casual. But yeah, I started in primary school and then played until I was probably about 16. So
A long time.
yeah.
So that was always on. No, it wouldn't have been on the same team. They would have been on several different teams.
Yeah, well, I played for my primary school team, and then I did like various like county level stuff and like different tournaments, and I played for a local team as well, and then my secondary school, and then another local team. So a few.
Just all over the place.
Yeah.
So were all of those gendered, or was there any like mixed teams, or like were they all? I guess were they all women's teams? Were they?
Not the primary school ones. That was mixed. And then this is gonna sound like I'm bragging, but I was like scouted at 10 to go. What's it called? Like audition, not audition. What's it called for sports? Try out. To try out for Watford ladies for their like emerging team, because I was obviously like turning 11, 12, and that's when it has to become gendered, or at least it was when I was playing. I didn't go because the tryouts were in Scotland, and my dad was like, "You're 10, we're not going to Scotland for that." But yeah, no, I played on a mixed team until I went to secondary school, and then it was gendered.
Cool. You're like an actual like. I mean, not that other people haven't been actual, but you're like you've played a lot.
Yeah, well, I had to give it up. This is again, it's gonna sound like I'm bragging. I had to give it up because I was playing basketball at the same time, and I got to like a higher and higher level, so I had to commit more and more time to that, and that's why I stopped football rather than. That was like the main factor. There were a few other things, but yeah, I played sport.
I feel like that's like a hidden community. Like,
Yeah.
Like, cause I think around the time that I was starting this project, and I was getting really into it. I was like, I was telling my friends about it, and they were like, "You've liked sport this whole time?"
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I like sport. I can't believe that this is. That I feel like I'm coming out to right
Yeah.
now.
Honestly, when I went for my interview for the job that I just got, I put that I played basketball and football and stuff, and like some of the levels that keeps buzzing. I'm so sorry. Should I start that again?
Yeah, you can start there.
Okay. When I went for my last interview, for my job, I put on my CV that I played like certain levels of football and basketball, and when I walked in, they were like, "Oh, I expected you to be taller." Because you play basketball and they're so sporty, and I was like, great. Oh no.
I don't know if this is like an insult. Or...
Yeah, I don't know what to say to that.
That's great. That's amazing. Cool. So do you actually also just in terms of basketball, I'm interested. Like, do you play either basketball and or football now?
No, I haven't played. I played a bit of basketball at uni, but I stopped playing football around like 16ish, and I haven't really played since.
Is it so it's just gym now? Just
Yeah, gym and like running, tennis sometimes if I'm feeling crazy. Like not like I don't play any team sports or any like clubs. Just like renting stuff.
is this might be a loaded question, so you can also just be like, no, it's not. It's just because. But like, is that because of not being able to find a space, like a team space that you want to be involved in, or is it just because you prefer like non-team sports?
I think it's because I haven't been able to find somewhere, or haven't felt like comfortable enough to pursue something. I've sort of had like a tentative look at places, but I'm not. I'm just a bit scared about like going into those kind of environments. But I've seen a few like trans only like sport teams, like specifically football ones as well. But I'm also like I don't want to feel like that's the only option for me. But not currently.
Do you have a preferred space that you would enjoy playing in, or is it more like just not what's currently on offer?
I don't know. I think that's the thing. I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't really know what's on offer, and I don't know what the current spaces are going to be like and how I'm going to interact with them, because like I've never played men's sport, so like that's a worry for me, and there's like the few like trans only or like LGBT only spaces I've seen have been very infrequent, or they haven't been in sports that I'd want to play, but we'll see.
Yeah. So if you had like an ideal thing, space-wise, it might also have to do with like the level that you're playing at, because you seem to be quite like good at sports. like would you prefer a space that's like properly competitive versus like an occasional kickabout or something?
I don't know. I think the weird thing about me is like I played a lot of sport. I got to quite a high level, but I'm not a particularly competitive person. I like just really enjoyed it, and like me and my dad would have like a lot of fun because he was the one that would take me to most of the sports stuff. And like a lot of my teammates would be really upset or like crying or like having a really tough time, like being really anxious. I was literally the opposite. They were all over there like having a tough time, and I was just like, there's cake and sandwiches at the end, and I've had a fun time. I've had a run around. Like, I'm having a great time. So I don't think like the competitive nature or the level is like a thing for me. I think it's just I haven't done it in so long. I've never played a men's sport, and I'm still. I think I'd just be really worried about how people would react if they knew that I was trans.
When you were playing,
Yes.
did you have a preferred position?
I did. I'm left-footed, which is quite rare. Are you actually? So I was always left midfield would be my position, because I'm relatively fast over a short period of time, so I could like get back in defence, but also help out front.
Can I just say like, because I also asked this question because I'm like in my head I'm like building a fantasy football team.
Yeah,
and
nice.
I'm like, so far everybody has said a different position.
Oh, nice.
So, like,
So you've got a
it's
team
happening.
together.
It's fucking happening.
Let's go.
We've got a goalie, we've got a striker, we've got a right midfielder, we've got a left midfielder, we've got one defense, which is me.
Nice.
So we're just missing like a couple of little.
You've still got time. You've still got people,
I've
right?
still got
You can
people.
just.
It's like, just picking you up from all over the country and bringing you to, I guess, Leeds. Which, you know.
I have friends. I went to the uni of Sheffield, so I have a lot of friends in Sheffield, so I could just pop
so
over.
fun. Actually, anecdotally, Sheffield, outside of London, which was obviously the place I expected to get enough, in the most people like responding to the call out. Sheffield is the second highest.
Is it?
Place.
Did you? I wonder if you talked to any of my friends. I didn't think they played football, so I didn't ask them.
I can't remember anyone's names.
That's so fair.
I'm really sorry.
No, that's fine.
It would be really funny if all of you were like, "Oh, I love to play football," and then nobody just asked and was like, "We should try."
Yeah.
No. Cool. Slightly more cerebral, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I was interested in kind of what you were saying about like getting really nervous and competitiveness and wanting to win, and you're not really caring so much about winning. And I was interested in like so something that's like come up a bit during this process, both in like my own research and also in talking to people, has been like the, and I air quote so heavily here,
okay.
conversation
right.
about trans inclusivity in sport, which
mm-hmm.
is obviously not a conversation and is super one-sided and is super uninformed. And we're not going to go into it. I just want to I'm just using it as like a in contrast,
mm-hmm.
Which seems very focused on like the idea that everybody who's trying to get into sport, regardless of whether they're trans or cis, but just that like sport as a concept only matters on like an Olympic level or like a national football team level.
Yeah.
Whereas I think like anyway, most people, again, doesn't matter if cis or trans, are just like, I play sport for the enjoyment or for the love of the sport, or like a mix of those two. And I was curious in a very broad way about, so answer however you want, about how you think maybe like trans people bring a slightly different ethos, I guess, to in this case football as a microcosm, but like to football that isn't based on like highly competitive like fuck the other team kind of, like it's more about building community spaces. And I was just interested in like whether you feel like there's like what you feel the value of like a trans ethos into like, let's say football, but like sports, what trans people can like give to that kind of space. It's quite wide, I know.
It's a big question, because like my initial thought was like, I think one of the reasons why I loved football, especially as a child, and loved it growing up, was it was one of the like activities I could do, especially when like under 11, where I could be with my friends and gender didn't matter at that time, because most of my friends were boys in primary school, so we all played football together, so it was another thing that we just had in common, where it like wasn't a thing, like who we were and like what gender we were. And I think maybe that's something that could be brought to the conversation, or something that trans people can bring, just like, this is something we enjoy, we can do it together and have fun, and like even if it is competitive at the time, it doesn't have to be in like a broader sense, like it doesn't have to mean anything after you've won or you've lost. There's cake at the end and sandwiches and like fun, and you've got the endorphins and like it's all good. But I don't know, I think the conversation, I know you said we weren't going to talk about it, but like about trans people in sport is like, as you said, it's always so focused, one, on trans women and trans feminine people, which I think not talking about trans men in the sport context is also like really skewing the conversation and making it far more gross, obviously, because it's not nice to like in any sense, but it also means that we don't I don't know, one, trans people are invisible, trans men are invisible in like all sport conversations, which I think has contributed a little bit to me wanting to participate in sports, even at like a very low level, but I think it also just continues to hyper focus the conversation about competitiveness and winning and advantage and the Olympics, rather than just like friends having a kickabout or meeting new friends, because I think it's a great way to meet new people, and I think it's more isolating, another way that trans men and trans people in general are isolated from society, because they feel like they can't participate in sport and reach out and meet new people.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I know that you've kind of already answered this, but I'll just ask it and just like in a different way, but like what is it that you really like about sport?
I don't know if it's part of the ADHD thing, where I just like have so much energy, so like just doing stuff and running about is really fun. But I think is the thing that I like, because I think that side of is I can do in the gym, like getting like feeling strong, feeling good, getting the endorphins, like getting sweaty in that sense, like I really enjoy, but I really miss the like everything that surrounds sport as well. So like meeting up before, traveling to games, like then going for drinks or food afterwards, talking about the game, like analyzing that kind of stuff. I really enjoyed like everything around it, the community, friends, um, being a bit nerdy about it, like stats and stuff. Like we like filmed our like posture and things, and like analyzed we were like kicking balls and stuff, like everything about it, just enjoyable, fun.
You're just at a much higher level. No, I'm like, because the other thing about me is that I'm like, I did a lot of different sports.
Mm-hmm.
There were none that I was like really good at. I just really needed to get all that energy out.
Yeah.
But I was like never the best at any team. Like football was the best.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's just I was always just like, I'm here.
I'm having a good time.
Good time.
We're all friends here.
We're all friends here, and like I grew up in Denmark as well, where I don't know what it's like now. I haven't been there for like I haven't lived there in like 10 years, but like at the time, all of the teams that I were on were mixed gender.
Oh wow.
Like in every sport.
Nice.
Including like judo, but that was weight classed, and I am quite a small person, so I ended up just fighting women anyway. But like,
yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's interesting for me because obviously I'm interviewing a lot of people mainly from England, and there's a part of me that's like single gendered spaces like this, like again, not to like bring up the conversation too, but it's like, but like y'all are like getting real upset about something that's already been implemented for at least 20 years in other countries.
Yeah.
It's very odd to just hear that from this perspective.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's not really much of a question. I was just like.
I think it was one because I when I moved from primary school to secondary school, I moved from like a mixed gender football team, and a mixed gender primary school to a single gender secondary school, and then therefore a single gender football team, and that was like very jarring for me in loads of senses because like it felt like I lost all my friends and all the people that like I enjoyed being around in one, and it was very weird that like you hit 11 and then everything is gendered in this country, it seems, no matter what. But
did you hear about the match that was played on Transgender Day of Visibility?
Was that recently?
Quite recently.
I saw there's a TikToker I follow, Parker. Yeah, and I saw that he was playing on a all transmasc team. Was it that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering because it was interesting, like because it was an all transmasc team, but then the opposing team were all cis men, and so like the teams themselves obviously were gendered in that sense, but in terms of, I think a lot of the like cis men playing had never really, like they were open to it and they were very excited for it, and like I talked to one of the people who'd been on the team, and who was like like one of the guys from the opposing team was like crying and being like really emotional about getting the opportunity to play. I just it's more of an anecdote because I was just like, it seems like some of the spaces are opening a bit more, or at least the spaces to have the conversation. Yeah. Because like you were mentioning, like we don't even really know what that space looks like yet. Yeah. But I think also like we haven't really had much of an opportunity to even ask. Yeah. So yeah, in that case, on that note, I am asking. Yeah. Just as a hypothetical, like 50 years from now. Yeah. If we're assuming that things move in a positive forward trajectory. Yeah. If we just make that, if we like really strain ourselves and hope that is something that this world could happen. What do you think like an ideal space for like transmasc people and trans men would look like? Whether that is like lots of different spaces, or like whether the field of football needs to just like open up for good, or whether it's like having still like gendered teams but having the opportunity to like move around and what that means and what gender means for the individual person. Anything that like speaks to you.
I think it would probably be having like multiple spaces, because I think for me, like I'm like a very binary trans man, so for me I'd like would want to feel comfortable and welcome in like a men's team, but I know that a lot of trans people wouldn't, and maybe they'd want their own space, or if they're like a bit scared or they're like earlier on in their transition and a bit worried about it, I think it would be a good thing to have those kind of spaces. Because I also think even like for me and other like very binary trans men, having spaces, being around other trans people and like in a sports setting, I think would also be nice, because it's just sometimes nice to be around trans people and other people like you. So yeah, I think opening it up, having multiple, but like allowing people to be in the spaces where they feel the most comfortable and letting them choose rather than letting like the regulations and the people above choose, I think would be the dream.
Sort of on that note, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
What do you? Oh, I'm still checking. What do you think that cis men's spaces that currently, like, even if they say that, because I know that there are cis, like, there are men's football spaces that are saying that they are trans inclusive,
Mm-hmm.
and yet somehow everybody on the team is a cis guy, and it's like, what do you think these spaces need to do in order to actually feel like open and welcoming to trans men also joining those teams? Or just you, actually, like,
Yeah.
like, I'm not saying you should speak for everything, like, trans, don't worry.
I don't know. I think they'd have to do something rather than just say we are trans inclusive. But I'm not 100% sure what that would like physically look like, because I think a lot of my worry would be like individual men, because I feel like most places, if they say they're trans inclusive, they're going to, like, if a trans person goes and then like experiences transphobia or something like that and goes to the people above, it will probably be sorted. But you would want to avoid those spaces and like those things happening in the first place. I don't know. I think maybe showing up, being more vocal about trans issues, showing that they actually do care rather than just being like, we're trans inclusive, like actually doing stuff, saying things when like legislations or like things are happening in the media. Maybe doing I don't know, like trans only sessions with the coaches to get them comfortable, or like having smaller teams and like opportunities for people to get involved and like slowly get involved so they can get more comfortable. I don't know. I think it is difficult because apart from just saying, hey, we're trans inclusive, we welcome you, it's difficult to actually show that tangibly, other than like getting people in and it going well. So I don't know.
No, it's, I appreciate that you're like, it's an interesting, I think having, I'm not like speaking for everybody, maybe just for myself in this case, but you know, I feel like I've seen it repeated a couple of times now as well. It's like, oh yeah, haven't had the chance to really ask this of like the wider sports space, in this case football space, because like who are we even like directing that at?
Yeah.
Like who is currently open, who's opened their doors and been like, hey, tell us what you need. So I appreciate that it's quite hard to answer for you. It's all good. I just wanted to be sure that you know that, because I don't want to like, it's not a quiz.
Yeah.
I promise.
Well, it's an interesting question because like I've like said a lot, especially recently, because my mate has joined a football team that he met through like other people, and I was like, oh, I'd really like to like join a team. A football team would be great, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable, and I like haven't thought what would make me comfortable and what would make me want to join a team. Like, I can't believe I hadn't really thought of that. I guess because, as you said, no one asks those questions. There aren't those people asking them. Did other people have answers that you've interviewed?
Yeah, some people did. I mean, actually, most people. I think it's interesting because I think a lot of transmass people have I don't know what to call it. Have like a connection to another part of queerness quite often.
Right.
Like a lot of transmass people that I've talked to have also identified or still identify as lesbians. Some of them were like I veer more non-binary, and a few other people I know also do that, and also like asexual, and but also I'm like I actually veer more towards like wanting to be in men's spaces because it's like a whole mix of things, right? But like not to get too deep into my own identity, but like so I think it also depended a lot on like I think people who had grown up a lot in lesbian spaces, because they grew up, some of them like were adults and went into lesbian spaces, but you know how it is. Were like, oh, I would actually feel most like I want there to be like a lesbian team, or a team that was inclusive of everybody except for cis men.
I can see that.
Ooh. So I wasn't sure if that was wind or rain. And then there were some people who were like, oh, I want like a fully mixed league, where you can just join, and then maybe depending on like skill levels, like you can do different kinds of matches, because obviously there's like 11 sides, 5 sides, etc. And like age as well, and so like it's based more on like actual things that are related to like you as a person. Like there's a difference between an 11-year-old and a 25-year-old.
Yeah.
There's a difference between like being like 5'5" and 6'3". Like things that were changeable around that. And then there were some people who were a bit like you, who were like, I'd like multiple different kinds of spaces. That all were like thinking about like what kind of people would actually fit into this particular space. For example, like a men's space ought to be inclusive of all men. Yeah. And the same for a women's space, right? And then so it was a lot of different like answers. Some of them were like personally minded, some of them very based in like queerness, and some of them like some of them more utopian perhaps. I'm quite utopian personally, so I'm like, it would be nice.
Like a completely mixed league, or like an LGBT specific mixed league would be really cool.
An LGBT plus specifically would be really, really cool. Yeah. I think they are sort of trying a little bit of that in Germany.
Ooh,
they've got a it's open to some of the same problems, but it's called Flinter, so it's female, lesbian, intersex, non-binary, trans, agender, I think it is. God, I'm like, I think that's what it is. But like essentially what it does amount to is that it's trying to be inclusive of everybody except for cis men, which I think it does a better job of being inclusive than women and non-binary, which I think is trying to do something similar, but then it tends to then just paint non-binary people, I think, as women light, which is always a bit and like I've spoken to a couple of trans guys who are also like, I mean, like, if there's no other spaces, I guess, but I also don't know if I'm gonna get discriminated against. Like the second that you come in with like a slightly deeper voice and facial hair, are they gonna how are they gonna react? How are they gonna check? Is the like how are they gonna check? Which is weird. Yeah, there's always like an underlying assumption with that, I think. That's a bit of a ramble, but it's just interesting. I'm learning a lot from everybody. So I'm also getting really excited to just like share it. Like the stuff about the football match and trans visibility was like stuff that I heard yesterday, and I was just like, oh, can't wait to tell people about it. It was really cool. I saw the kit was fun as well, because it was like trans colours. I enjoyed the kit a lot. Cool. We're kind of nearing the end. Oh, okay. But I wanted to ask you if you have like a really like a fond memory of something that you thought was really cool, something that was really fun, yeah, something that just like sticks in your head, something that was really silly or something. Yeah.
I mean, I have a few.
You can also give me a few.
Oh, okay.
You're allowed. You're so allowed.
My football team, when I was playing in primary school, we got a lot of like season tickets to go to like sports football games, and we got to play on the pitches quite a lot. And we played at a Fulham versus Chelsea, and at the time I supported Chelsea, so it was really exciting for me. And I learned a lot of swear words as well while I was there, because I was like 9. But we got to play on the pitch, and we had to like dribble round like big, you know, those floaty things. I can't remember what they're called. You know, yeah. And then we played against the Fulham goalie, and I was the only one that scored. And that felt really good. That was a core memory. That felt like a win. And then there was a good like month where I was convinced that I played better football in my school shoes. So I would turn up every Saturday, because my dad was a coach. So I'd turn up later than him because he'd have to get there early. And I'd turn up in my school shoes, and then I'd have to walk home every Saturday to get changed into my football boots, because he was having none of it. I still think I did play better in my school shoes. But
That's amazing.
yeah.
Thank you for that.
Anytime.
It's interesting because I was asking this question. I've been like, I'm weirdly like vague on precise memories, so I'm really happy that so many people have like, oh yeah, this thing. I'm like, yay! I'm glad that there are things that have stuck out.
Yeah.
Cool. Final question. I have constantly done this.
Yeah.
I've been like, final question. People have been like, it's not that deep. Don't worry.
Okay.
It's not that intense. Yeah. Just why do you think that other trans and I guess just queer people more widely should get into football, either as like players or fans, supporters?
I think for players, just because it's fun, and because I think so many people, like almost all the trans people I know, have played sport growing up and have been sporty and enjoyed that kind of thing, but felt like they couldn't participate in it at various points because of their transness or their queerness, or like some sort of barrier to do with that. So just like doing it for yourself, I think, is a good thing. And like if you enjoy it, do it. But I also think, like, as we were talking about, like, we're so invisible in these spaces, just turning up, doing stuff, talking about it, being there is going to be something and will maybe help change the spaces to be more inclusive, or to at least listen and start asking the questions to get us more involved. I'm not a huge like football watcher now or supporter, partly because when I like fell out of love with football and like felt like I couldn't participate in it, I sort of stopped watching it because I wasn't as like actively involved. But it's obviously a very like male, a certain type of cis male environment, and I think that has stopped me from getting back into it as well, because it feels very unwelcoming. So like showing up in those spaces as well will just make it better for everyone, I think. But yeah.
Slightly follow-up. I guess we kind of also did cover it a little bit earlier, but I just was like, just in terms of like supporting football, because as well, like I think recently there was like a Leeds match that was like, there's a stadium just outside of Leeds, and me and a friend of mine were like on our way home from the bus, and with the bus, and then we were just like seeing like streams of like presumably mostly cis guys, of like between I guess mainly like 30 and 50 or so.
Yep.
Like coming out of everywhere, and we're just like,
a few beers down, very loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like great. I guess in that sense, like this is so vague, but like just come at me. Like I guess what kind of spaces can we build for supporters? Like either in the spaces that already exist, or by creating like other opportunities to watch other kind of teams.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think because I watched a lot of the women's football and a lot of the women's Euros when it was on, and those spaces felt very different. Even like in pubs and stuff when that was on, it just felt like a very different environment, and like a safer one. So I guess making women's football bigger, hopefully, like the trans match and stuff like that, LGBT sport maybe, having that more widely available, widely accessible, and I think also, I think FIFA and that lot they're trying to do more, like they have adverts now against homophobia, which, is something they're trying. I think when more football players come out, I think that will start to change the environment as well. But I don't know what more could be done with supporters, because I think it's so deeply entrenched and there's so many reasons why it seems so scary and inaccessible to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I think the rise of women's sport and conversations about homophobia and transphobia hopefully will get less yikes, and that will start to infiltrate down into games and the wider sport and football sphere. But yeah.
I very much agree. I think and that's the really silly thing as well, is if one supports trans inclusivity in sport, then it goes hand in hand with supporting more access to women's sport as well.
Yeah.
They're not two different conversations, and it's so weird that they're being treated like two different issues, and they're different facets of the same issue. And often they're not even different facets. Often they're asking the exact same questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, also I think and again, this is anecdotal and also just me included, is I think a lot of us prefer watching women's football.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you don't want to. They're better. I think they're more skilled. They're they have more respect for the ref. The general vibe, the way they interact with each other and the supporters and online, I think is just, they're better role models often. But yeah, there's less diving, which is the most infuriating thing I think about football.
The what?
There's less diving and faking injuries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which always makes it more enjoyable, I think, when they're not.
I technically agree with you.
Okay.
But also, sometimes I will watch men's football just because I'm
the drama.
Magic little I think, not to be stereotypical, I think most of you are gay. You're all giving it drag.
Yeah, they're selling it.
Yeah, you're all giving it I don't know, the drama of it all is oh, this is what masculine drag looks like.
Yeah.
To me. It's just this is a completely different sport, or it's a completely different thing. But a fair few wrestlers have been have talked about the idea of wrestling as performative, male wrestlers performative masculinity on purpose.
Yeah, I can see
and I'm
that.
I think a lot of men's sports is like that.
Yeah.
They're just performing different kinds of masculinity depending on the sport.
Oh, in rugby, I know, again, a different sport, but when they get each other's shirts and they've got their foreheads to each other, I'm kiss, kiss, kiss. Because it's so homoerotic.
It's really fascinating. I'm I don't know. I think with women's football, I'm watching it for the skill. I'm watching it for the impressiveness of the sport, and again, I think they are better role models. I think they are technically much more interesting to watch on a pitch, because I'm watching real football happening.
Yeah.
And then with the men's, I'm you're all so silly.
Yeah.
I wish you wouldn't, but also I would almost feel sad at this point if you stopped. Somebody falling down and grabbing their knee and starting to scream, and I'm
and then immediately jumping up and being what, ref?
I'm alright, calm down. This is the elite. This is what we're trying to protect the sanctity of. Come on. Anyway, so that's a complete aside. I feel like that's me being like almost voyeuristic about it, like weirdly like oh, this is what they do.
Yeah.
And I've been performing masculinity wrong. I don't think so. I've been performing it exactly right.
Exactly.
Is there something like at the end of all this? Is there something that you, and you can feel free to be like, nope, I think I've covered everything. I feel like I'm on the cover. But like, is there anything that you feel like you really want people to know, either about like your own experiences or like the wider conversation?
I think I've sort of covered it a lot, but I've been thinking about football a lot more because I knew this interview was coming up, and because like my mate has started to play football a lot and we've watched it a lot more, and I feel like I have like just missed out a lot and like lost a big part of something I really enjoyed as a child because I felt like I couldn't be in those spaces. And it just made me a little sad. No, it's like, it was good because I think it's like motivated me a bit more to look into these and maybe not be the one to like start the conversations because like who am I, but like think about it more, be more involved, because like I have always my entire life enjoyed football and other team sports, and I haven't been able to do that, partly because like I've stopped myself, but also because I've just been scared of how like people would react if they found out I was trans. So I think just I want people to know that trans people exist and enjoy sport and want to and should participate in it, and football is a fun sport to play and I'd like to play it.
I think maybe if we can, sorry, I'm not to put words in your mouth, but I feel like maybe if we can, because I think one thing that I feel really keenly is that I want the younger generation, like the people who are kids now, the kids now, I want them to have access to these spaces.
Yeah.
Because I think if they can feel that support in who they are at that point, I mean, and that includes things like, kids these days have more access to the language of transness even. Because I don't know about that until I was like 19 or 20, so like that wasn't in my vocabulary as like a possibility. But yeah, like having access, I think it would change a lot for them. Yeah. Yeah. Also, sorry, just like as a complete, I feel like I may have asked this before, but just in case I didn't. When you were a kid, what kind of space would you prefer to play in then? Like a cis, I say cis men's because there would have been like cis men's, but like opening up a cis men's space to be just inclusive for men, or like a mixed team when you were a kid.
I think mixed, because I played it at a mix. I mean, it was mostly boys, but I think mixed because I think it's silly to regulate and like separate children by gender, but I think I would have really appreciated as a young trans boy if I'd had that language, because I didn't know until I was like 16 the word, but if I'd known at like 11, I think I would have really appreciated having like a boys team and being welcomed on that, because it was really difficult for me to like navigate as a child, being like having all my friends who were boys, feeling like part of that but not having access to it. So I think having a boys team would have felt really good for me, but I think in general a mixed team is better for children, because why would you separate children by gender? It's a bit silly.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, I just wanted to, just because we were talking a bit about like talking about the stuff. Cool. Yeah. You're so good.
Thank you.
I'll pull this down.
Exciting.
It's done. You did it. You were amazing.
Still.